my head held high. I'm walking around with my head held high. You know why? My dreams in reach, I can see those lights. My dreams in reach, I can see those lights. They on the other side. I'm walking around with my head held high. I'm walking around with my head held high. You know why? My dreams in reach, I can see those lights. My dreams in reach, I can see those lights. They on the other side.
Welcome to Would You Marry You, where we have candid conversations about what you are bringing to the table. We are so excited today to have an expert witness. To have an expert with us when it comes to communication. The title of our show today is, I Said What I Said. Ooh. But did you really?
Did you really?
Did you really?
Did you really?
Takisha, come on, sis. Talk to me about this one now.
This is so good. And when we were talking about this topic, I was like, oh, I can do this topic because I be saying some things, you know what I'm saying? And when I say it, I mean it at the time until I think about it and I'm like, oh my gosh, did I really just say what I said? I think that when you're in relationships, it's a little hard because we make it hard.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we don't put the things in place that we need to in order to be able to be adulting and be adults in the conversations that we're having. So adulting is having the toolkits that you need that we all freely have to understand it, but it takes time and it takes an intentionality. And I don't think that people really want to be that intentional about learning learning themselves, but also learning their spouse or their relationships that they're in. And that is, like, I'm more of a business person, but that is in all aspects of life. With your children, with your husband, with your teammates that you're in team with, how do you communicate? So there's a lot of faulty things that are going on here. So I'm just gonna let you know, like, go through all the list of things that are there that can affect better communication.
That is so good.
Yeah, so here goes. Okay, so there's one. One is the personality. Do you know your personality? Like, and so I'm talking about like the Myers-Briggs, like we are both INTJs. We have the same love language here, right?
We do.
Okay, yes. So how about that? And then let's also talk about the DISC profile, which is like if you're a DC personality or a DRISC. Knowing those things will be very helpful in you understanding how to communicate, how you communicate, that could seem condescending to the next person.
Yes.
Right? And why would it feel condescending to the other person? So if I am, here's a good example. We're both INTJs, so we're process-oriented people.
Correct.
Process. But what if someone was an INFJ? They lead with their feelings.
Emotions.
They're emotional creatures.
Yes.
And by knowing that, it helps you. It helps me in business. It helps me communicate better with my team members, right? When I go in there knowing that person with that INFJ, that person wants me to bring down all of my little whatever personality that I have, that I think I know everything, and then bring it back down to, I need you to nurture me.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's not based on a man or a woman. There are plenty of INFJ men out there that need women that could be more high performing to actually have those relationships and connect those dots between the two.
That is so good. And I've never actually thought about it from that perspective because and I'll see it sometimes, especially honestly with my children. They're adults now, so we're talking to adult children, and they've gotten used to me not having a whole bunch of feelings, and that sounds horrible. I mean, I know that sounds really bad.
I call myself the 10 woman. Like when I do trainings, I say that I'm the 10 woman. Like, I don't lead with my heart.
No,
if I only had a brain, but I've only had a heart here. if I only had it, and I don't.
Yeah, my children know that I'm not sympathetic. I can be empathetic, right? I can understand. I may not be able to relate, but I can understand. And I think that's another thing, is actually being able to hear a person and communicate to understand. I don't have to agree with you, but I do want to understand.
I think Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand than
Correct.
to be understood, right? And so if you can seek first to understand the other person, that's half the battle. How they want you to deliver it to them is the other side of that coin.
I love that, because
Yeah.
if a person, and thinking through that, knowing that I do have a wry sense of humor.
Yeah.
I am, yeah. I do have a wry sense of humor. People don't know when I'm serious, and they don't know how to take me, and I get that. You know, like I know, our personality type is what, 2% of
2%
of the world?
of the world, and that's just men. And then when you take it to women, and two women with the same personality in the same room, that
Yeah.
is less than 2%. So it's probably maybe 0.5% of the world is us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. Also, it's you have to use discernment,
Yes. Yes.
because when you know what you're dealing with, I have 4 children. We got 4 different personalities. 2 are similar, and the other 2 are similar, which is really interesting. It's just interesting. My youngest is more like me than any of them. She really is. I have to be careful how I communicate with her because of the fact that she's so much like me. Because I can say something that someone else may take super offensive. She's so stoned, she doesn't show that she's taking it offensive, but later on she's like, Mom, you really hurt my feelings there. And I'm like, oh, wow. I mean, you know what I meant.
Exactly, but they don't receive it that way.
No.
So, like, personality profiling is one way that you can communicate. Understanding someone's love language is another way that you can. But let's go a little bit deeper. Like, things that we don't usually talk about. Not only are we talking about that there is personality, there's also temperament. Like, I could be passive. Someone could be passive aggressive. Someone could be aggressive, and someone could be, I'm trying to think of the other word, but anyway, passive aggressive. And so if you're passive aggressive, you're dealing with someone who doesn't own their own emotions. You'll ask them, are you okay? They'll say, yes, I'm okay. But they'll be banging the door and they'll be slamming the things because they're not able to share with you what they're dealing with. They don't know how to actually do that. And the other word is assertive. Like, you can be assertive. I always want my people, when I do training, to talk about, like, I want you to land on assertive.
Correct.
That means that you're able to say what's on your mind, but you're able to respect the other person and understand that how you say it is not necessarily how they need to receive it, right? So, okay, we just talked about all of that, right, guys? Okay, so how about this? Okay, not only are you dealing with that, but you're also dealing with people that have cognitive issues that you have not talked to. When I was talking to or met my husband, I never asked him, do you have, that was never a part of my conversation. No. Like, do you have ways that you learn better than other ways? Like, when I'm talking to you, do I need to talk to you a different way? What if you are on the spectrum? What if you're married to someone that's on the spectrum and you haven't even had the conversation with them to know that maybe they feel awkward, they feel socially awkward, right? So when they're telling you, I don't want to go to this baseball game, it's because they're feeling socially awkward, and you're just saying, you're just like you're damping my parade here. I want to go, and you don't. So there's so many other things that when we're in relationships, we don't even talk about it.
Correct.
People say, talk about money first, like talk about it. No, we should be talking about how we communicate with each other first, because that is how we're able to understand each other better.
So how do you bring that conversation up? I mean, that's a real conversation that needs to be handled, like you said, in all relationships. Well, but ultimately, we're the common denominator in the relationship, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
How do you bring that subject up?
I think that I don't think that you go into the first date saying, like, are you cognitively, do you have cognitive issues? I think that, but I do think that you have to use the Holy Spirit to start to slow down the relationship and start to understand the partner or the person that's in front of you. Like, what are their likes and what their dislikes? Why don't they like it that way? Like, what are some of the things? Sometimes we're not diagnosed. Like, I went to go and get my face all done yesterday, and I've had this particular I had this particular person in my life for years doing like my face and everything, and I didn't know that she was on the spectrum. She wasn't diagnosed until later on in her life that she was on the spectrum. She knew that she had some other things going on, but she's like this out of the box person, her personality, and you wouldn't think that that she is that way, but it's probably because she's so brash and out there that there's something there. Like, so I didn't know for years. She didn't know for years. And honestly, if you're in your like 40s and 50s, that wasn't a big topic back in the day.
Not at all.
So a lot of people are walking around and they're not even diagnosed with anything. Which there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a better way of understanding people so that you can communicate better. So we don't even know.
So powerful. Yeah. My biological father was a documented genius. So of course he was very socially awkward, very a prodigy when it came to music. Like could play any instrument.
Somehow I believe he's probably was on the spectrum.
That's what I was getting ready to say. That was getting ready to say. Very socially awkward, but very. I mean, like when I tell you, like super smart, super smart in anything he touched. It just went. Yeah. But he did not like people. I mean, I say he didn't like people. He was in the church. He was a minister of music his whole life. He played with the Barkays back in the days in the Motown era. But it was that space of being able to communicate with him. And the one thing I missed, he has graduated to heaven, but I miss our conversations because they were conversations that if anyone was listening in, they'd be like, what are they talking about? Are they there? Because they were so deep. Like you could, the smallest sentence in the Word of God, and we could dig it. I mean, like dig into that for hours and just pull out stuff that was not visually seen, had never been talked about, and just really have those types of conversations. And there's not very many people you can have those types of conversations with. So I definitely miss that. But one of the things is our communication was very assertive. You know, I don't like it when you do that. Like it was period, point blank.
Can we just
go there?
Go
it's
there.
Okay.
It's really okay, and
so
not be offended.
How do you communicate that to someone who avoids conflict? Because that's what I've run into a lot. Is there people literally will avoid conflict? I think conflict can be good. It can be healthy.
I think that it can, and I think that being direct can. But so, like, okay, so I had, now this is like some years ago, but I remember having a team member and we were having like these issues, like, or whatever. And I remember also like a moment where we were all on a call and it started to disintegrate. Like the call was disintegrating and I just could not stop the call. Like I am like shoot it. Like, and so I'm like she's she's a feeling person, and I'm telling her the things that are like the inherent things that are problems, right? And I remember we at some point I said, let's just go ahead and drop this call, and then we'll come back later. And I then called like my president of the company because she was on the call too, and I'm like, did you hear that? And I'm like talking to her and I'm like so frustrated with this team member because she's passive aggressive. I'm assertive, but to a passive aggressive person, I could seem like I'm aggressive.
I was going to say she probably felt attacked.
She felt attacked.
Yes.
And I didn't see it because I was livid. I was livid with her. And so I called my president. I'm like, I was telling him, she said, hold on. She said, this is what I saw. She said, I saw when she stopped. And when I could hear the inflection in her voice. And I saw when you lost her. And I said, lost her? Yes, I saw when you lost her in the conversation.
That's so good.
And so when I go out and I train corporations and stuff like that, I talk about this topic and I say, what did I do wrong? And they'll tell me I did this wrong and I should have done this and everything. And so here's where I have to always land. I never go into meetings, and that would be with my family or I need to share something, without taking a moment to understand what they need from me.
That's so good.
I never go into a meeting without considering what their needs are first. I never set a meeting without taking a moment to understand who I'm about to get in front of, what their personality is, and like what my issues can be, and how I can be a little bit stubborn and all those kind of things. So it starts with understanding like who you're about to talk to, how they need to receive it from you. Like if they are someone that doesn't like conflict, then you have to, there's this sandwich method that we do in business, like when we're sharing, like it's like positive and negative things or whatever.
Yes.
And the sandwich method is you go in with the positives. Like the bread is the positive way that you communicate. Like, here's what is going well.
Yeah.
You can have that conversation with your family.
Yeah.
Like, I love how you do this. I thank you for all that you've done for me. Like, I appreciate you. Okay. So then you come in with the lettuce, tomatoes, mayonnaise, and all the little things. And that's my favorite part of the sandwich, okay?
Right.
All the condiments is my favorite, okay?
Yeah, that's the best
part.
part.
And so when you bring that in, it's like, okay, so but I want to talk to you about how I feel about the way you did this or the way that you did that. You start to add that meat in there, like, okay, so this is how I really truly felt. And I really want to talk about it and come to some consensus about how we can get better in communicating with each other.
Yeah.
Then you bring that bread in and say, well, okay, the last slice of the bread normally would be for a professional is that you're saying like, okay, so let's see how we can like look at this in 3 months or in a month or whatever. When we're talking about friendships and family, it's like, okay, like I really want us to succeed in this. So let's work hard to get there. Let's work hard on it. I'm going to work hard on, on being whatever I need to be. And I want you to work just as hard to be who you need to be so that we can actually come together and be intentional with each other.
That is so interesting. It's such a healthy way of really thinking of it through a tool set, right? Of being able to have those tools. Get your toolbox. These are my tools that I'm going to use. I have found, coming from one background and then my spouse coming from another, my previous spouse coming from another background, I was actually communicating in the way that had been comfortable to me. And I wasn't thinking through, the other side of the situation. And once I started doing that, it's almost like I was heard now.
Yes.
And that is key.
Yeah.
So how do you have those conversations in preparation for marriage or once you're in the marriage and you realize that you're losing them in the middle of conversation?
Yeah. Sometimes we don't fight fair. And then there's sometimes when we just can't, there is going to need to be someone else that's involved.
Okay.
Sometimes we can do it. Like, what I'm saying? Like the INTJ in us, like if we had another INTJ, we would just have a conversation or whatever. And then, but then emotions and then the reminders of what I didn't do right and what I could have done, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas get involved, and we need some help. So it's like, okay, like so it's been years since I've been married, but one of the things that I feel like I want to institute for me and my husband that's coming in due season, right?
Yes,
okay.
in due season.
Is that we have somewhere to go that's kind of like an even place for the both of us, where we feel like we can, like maybe a minister or a counselor or something that we can invite someone in that can be that level-headed person. Because we are dealing with not just all the things. Just imagine that I didn't add one thing in there. Remember I was telling you all these things that we are? I didn't even mention emotional intelligence and the emotional triggers that we all deal with.
That's real.
Like, so there's not only that my personality is different, and it's not only that my temperament, like I'm a passive or whatever. Like my emotional triggers pop in. Like how do I handle conflict resolution?
Yeah.
How do I handle all of these different things? How do I handle the people that are out there? And how can you be a safe haven for me when I walk in the door?
That's so good.
Right?
That's so good.
Can we just start with being like, what is your safe haven? What does that look like? When you walk through the door after a long day, do you want just peace and quiet and nothing else? Okay, if that is the case, can I just give him or her that moment to
Yes.
step away for a moment and have that moment to themselves?
That's so good, because in my family, ain't nobody going to bed till we figure this out. You ain't going to bed, you ain't going to work, we ain't go. No, we having a family meeting and ain't nobody leaving until we get this resolved. But in my ex-husband's family, they would just disappear until they're not mad anymore, and then they come back and I'm like, you didn't resolve anything. Like, what?
So let me just say this. I don't know that that's a healthy place to be either. Like, I mean,
Neither one of them is healthy.
Neither one of them is healthy. So I always say that when you are working through, like, you can't leave a situation open.
That's
If
so
you
good.
want the enemy to get involved in something, leave it just wide open. And he will take territory, and he will take territory, and he will take territory in your relationship.
That's so good.
So you can't, in business, in life, in family, and all those kind of things, when you leave it open, you leave it open to a lot of crazy things. So you never leave it open. You have the conversation. What happens is, for people who have a hard time communicating frustrations and stuff like that, they leave it.
Yeah, they do.
And then what happens is the harsh feelings and the bad feelings continue to grow. And so what happens is, I talk about this, like, okay, so in conflict, what conflict happens is one moment there's confusion, because you're like, did this just happen? Did they just say this to me? Like, what just happened here, right? So it goes from confusion to frustration.
That's good.
Because you have not resolved it. And then from frustration, you go to a place of anger. And angry and anger are two different things.
Yes, they are.
So, but when you get anger, that is in your heart. It starts a deep setting in your heart. What do you think goes after anger?
Rebellion.
Reacting. Not responding, or the other side of responding, which is like fighting, and the infighting and all those kind of things. So if you don't take the time to say, okay, like, knowing that, like, okay, so INTJ, we like to step away for a moment and gather ourselves and think about it. We are overthinkers. But at some point, you have to then turn around and say, okay, I'm going to now be intentional. I've had a moment, like maybe an hour, like maybe 4 hours to now, to do my overthinking.
Right.
And now it's time for us to come back and finish the conversation, not the fight, the conversation. So I'm going to finish the conversation. I've had a moment to kind of like recap in my brain what my thoughts are, and I'm ready to have the conversation, a peaceable conversation. Because when we get off, like, we can walk away and we're stubborn, so we can have be peace and then see you later, and it carries on. Like, no, I want to have a conversation with you, and then I want to get into bed with you, and I want to lay with you, and I want to enjoy my time with you, and I want to feel like my voice means something and your voice means something.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Being able to walk through that process, and for both people to realize that, okay, we've done this wrong up until now. Let's both work at what this is, and not bringing in our past situations, and not bringing those things up.
Don't remind them of anything. No reminders are in, like, when you're building out this new conversational mode for yourself, there's no reminders.
That's so good.
like that, like decide what's going to be in the circle, and decide what's not going to be in the circle. Like, okay, I've repented from this. I have, God, like I have gotten beat down by God, like, what I'm saying, like all the things.
Yes.
And that is now not in this circle. And so what I want to do is create this haven of openness where I can have a conversation with you. We can talk about it. We can share about it. I'm starting to know more about your personality and who you are and what you need. And that's what's going to be in the circle. Everything else outside of the circle.
That is so good.
Build that level of that haven of trust for each other. So because if you've been married, like I was married altogether for maybe like 18, 19 years altogether. That's a long time. That's a lot of googly glob in the middle of the circle.
Yeah.
Okay, now that I'm divorced and now singling and everything, like I want to know that you have emotional intelligence or that you're growing in it. I want you to know your triggers and what's triggered, but I also want to know your triggers so that I don't step on the trigger.
And some people take that the opposite direction. They know the trigger, so they will step on it,
exactly
so they have
right.
a reason to do
Exactly
whatever
right.
they want to do.
But it's what's in the circle.
That's it.
It's what we've agreed to
That's
be
good.
in the circle, and everything else is outside of the circle.
That is so good. Man, this conversation literally could go on for hours.
hours,
I have
yes.
learned so much, and I'm so thankful. There's some things that I knew, and there's some things that I didn't know. And even as a counselor, I'm a licensed pastoral counselor, been a counselor for years. There are some things that I didn't put together. When I think about temperament, I think about, I'm very melancholy. Like I have that melancholy type of no emotion sometimes.
Me too.
I have to check myself, like pinch myself, make sure I'm still alive, because some stuff just be like, oh, that's supposed to bother me? Oh, really? Didn't bother me. And I'm able to walk away,
Yes.
Is that healthy? Absolutely not, because the body keeps the score. Like I may say it doesn't bother me, and I may honestly think that it doesn't, but my body keeps the score. And I've seen time and time again, we talked about health issues because of that. And it's truly about not being able to communicate effectively or feeling that you're communicating and you're not being heard.
Yeah, and
I
if you're
think
not
that
being,
was the thing.
and half the time, if you're not being heard, that means that you haven't gotten onto their level of communication so that they can understand it.
That's so
it's
good.
so good for you to say it for yourself. It's another thing to say it so that they absolutely, your significant understands it.
That is so good. Man, I hope that something was said today that has gotten you to a different space of really understanding, would you marry you? And as I say all the time, don't just be a hearer of the word, but be a doer of the word, because ultimately you're the common denominator in every relationship. So until next time, keep that idea of what communication looks like. I said what I said.
I said what I said. Bye, guys.
See ya.
I'm walking around with my head held high. I'm walking around with my head held high. You know why? You know why? My dreams are reach. I can see those lights. My dreams are reach. I can see those lights. They on the other side. I'm walking around with my head held high. I'm walking around with my head held high. You know why? You know why? My dreams are reach. I can see those lights. My dreams are reach. I can see those lights. They on the other side.